this game. So the game started with Pirc defense, bishop e2, and alternatively we can also make bishop to e3, queen d2, and long castle, and later move the bishop to h6 to offer exchange. So we can attack the king side, for example. Bishop e2 is also a common move. Some places would choose. So there's no problem. Castle, castle, c6, and I think the intention was very clear, pushing the pawn to b5 later, so we can actually push a4 to stop b5. And move to e1, bishop to g4, e5. So, I mean, e5 is a little bit like white can keep pushing the pawn to expand the control at the center. So instead, I would say, because the bishop aiming at this diagonal, I think it's hard for black to push the b5. There's some threat on this diagonal. So maybe black can move the knight and rook and later push the pawn. Now with d5, and that's good. So we have expanded a lot of space to queen side. c5, knight to e2, maneuver the knight. I think later we'll push the c pawn. c4. So white is slightly better. And a3, we're going to push b sub, b4, 98, 93. Well, I think 93 is not necessary, to be honest, and I don't see very clear intention with this move, because we moved pawn to a3. I assume we are going to push the b pawn, so can we just do that to make these two moves consistent? And later we can move rook to b1 and bishop to e3, attack c5, and later we can probably move the knight to c3 again, and even b5. So the thing is, if we want to attack the queen side, I think we should move our pieces to the queen side. Yeah, it's more about consistency between our moves. f5, b4. Now we push the b4. But the problem is f4, our knight has to go away, so this makes us like wasted one move at least. So can we take the pawn? Take, and the thing is, after f4 we can move knight to e4. That's a very good square for the knight. And maybe black will push the pawn to e4, but this f5 pawn could be a problem. So for example, bishop to h5. And if you f4, as I said, knight e4, if you push e5, e4, we can play bishop to g6. And I think we can win the pawn. b4, f4, knight f1, knight f6. Okay. Yeah, you see? So now we move the knight back to b3. I think the queen side is the better place for the knight. But the we waste a couple of moves from g3, f1. So if we can move nice instead straight away to c3, that would make us quicker. Oh, queen f5, I think that's a problem, because the queen is under attack potentially. So I would just move the queen back to d1. Like d5, yeah. So we lost I think we lost 2 pawns. e6, c8. Knight d2, queen d5, knight c4. Black make the king safe, but black will lose the e5 pawn. So I think push the pawn to e4 is a good idea. And keep pushing pawns to expose the white king or create a passed pawn. 95 is a good move. We at least want a pawn back. 97. I think the rook can move to e8. Queen e2. So okay, so we want another pawn. That's good. And we turn the game into equalized endgame. And the next question is how can we secure a draw? Because I think, positional wise, I think black is still better. It's an open position. A bishop is usually stronger than a knight. So if we can get a draw, I'm happy with that. The question is how. So rook d5. So first of all, I think we need to think about place for our knight. So knight f3 looks good. And then we need to push our pawns. Otherwise, black will expand its space. And also the black pawns will advance. So if the pawn advance, it will make us passive. And it makes the pawn easier to get into the background. So g4 could be something we can consider. If take, we like exchange pawns, make the position simplified. If black doesn't take the pawn, we can, because this is a light square, and there's no black piece can attack the pawn. Pawn is safe. h2, b3, b1, check. Well, this check, I think that's a problem. I don't think this check does it give us anything. I think it only makes the black king reach to good square. So if there's no reason behind the check, I think we don't have to check for the sake of check. So can we push g4? I think we still can. So yeah. And now king f5, for example, we can push the g pawn. So we can control all the light squares because our opponent has a dark square bishop. All the light square can control by us. Yeah, so this is something I would go for. And we check the king, kings to f5. We can still play g4. And I think all the moves we did are helping our opponent to move pieces to a better place. Yeah, you see? We help black activate or make the pieces at a higher position, and h5 is a really good move. This is definitely something we missed. And we cannot take the pawn because the rook will be trapped. So, and also after h5, it makes us harder to push g4. King h1. Why do we move the king to h1? So I think we should just keep the rook at this h file. And if black push g4, we can probably take the pawn. Now we can win the pawn, right? And then we can, after trading the rooks, we can win another pawn. So this is a move we can prevent black pushing the pawn further. King h1, yeah. Oh, g4, yeah. So we have some problem here, I think. If we take the pawn, we have no place to move the knight, and the bishop is really strong. If we move the knight to the back rank, the rook will pin the knight. If we move the knight to g1, rook will go to h5 and we'll lose the knight. So that's a problem. If we move the knight to g1 right now, I think rook d1 is still a problem. The knight is pinned. It's very passive. So what can we do? Maybe the best move is to sacrifice the knight. g3, take. I can probably move a3, and then I can at least win this pawn and exchanging the pawn at f4. So if we don't have any pawns at the board, even though black has an extra bishop, we can still get a draw. So yeah, but this move is not easy to find, to be honest. Okay, after losing the knight and black still have a very strong f4 pawn, I think black is winning. Yeah, so yeah, I think black's winning. So I think when the game was, first of all, queen f5 is a mistake. We lost 2 pawns, and our opponent turned to be better than us. But we fight very well till the end game. It's a very equalized position when we have 3 pawns at the king side. But the problem is we didn't move our pieces, especially pawn structures is really low. The pawn positions are really low, which makes our opponent keep pushing pawns to suppress our space. And I think the main problem is we move the rook to check and attack black pieces. It doesn't help us much, but make our opponent to move pieces to a better place, to improve pieces. So that's a problem.